And now we have the presentation on the Citizen Education Cluster. And I will now hand you over to Mrs. Edith Hammer, Program Specialist at UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. And we are looking forward to see the presentation of the results of the cluster survey. Mrs. Edith Hammer.
Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I'm very pleased to give you an introduction and an overview of a survey which we conducted among the members of the Citizenship Education Cluster. And on this first slide, what you can see is a visualization of the answers given in the survey. It's a word cloud, and we can clearly see that unsurprisingly the words citizenship and education are the largest, so they have been mentioned the most in the answers, but we can also see other words that are quite interesting and related to citizenship education, like youth and schools, culture, community, social. So I think this gives a good overview of the topics that are strongly related to citizenship education. I would like to give you a brief overview of what we tried to do with this survey. So the main purpose was to gain some insights among what cluster members are doing in terms of citizenship education, how they are implementing this topic at the local level. And for this, we were focusing on 6 areas. So it was a rather short questionnaire asking cities to share a little bit about what are their strategic approaches towards citizenship education, what kind of partnerships do they build at local level, who are the stakeholders that are involved in their efforts, who are the main target groups that citizenship education is directed to. Also to give some examples of good practice of what they are doing. We asked them to identify their thematic priorities, which they are most interested in. And last, we, of course, referred to the current context of the COVID-19 crisis and asked them how citizenship education may have changed within their local context and what they have been doing to support local communities. In addition to these 6 core areas, we also asked several questions about technicalities that help us to organize the work of the cluster, but I today will focus on these 6 areas mentioned here. So the survey was launched in May this year in 3 languages. It was sent to all members of the cluster. We have 38 members in the Citizenship Education Cluster, and we received responses from 11 cities. So I'm mentioning this to clarify that the survey and the results that I'm presenting to you are not representative of the member cities of the UNESCO GNLC or even of cities in the world, but they rather provide insights of good practices. Maybe we can see some commonalities and differences of different cities, and also identify some trends, but it is not as such a representative study. We have received responses from 4 different regions, Serekure from Guinea. In Asia and the Pacific, we have 3 cities from Korea who participated, Danyin, Yeonsu-gu, and Gwangmyeong, also Shiraz from Iran. From the European North American region, we have Gelsenkirchen. From Germany, we have 2 Greek cities, Heraklion and Larissa. We have Espoo and Gdynia included in the survey. And from the Latin American region, we have the city of Contagem in Brazil. So we are very thankful for those who took the time to respond to the questionnaire. So I would like to present the results of these 6 core questions. And our first question was directed towards finding out what are the strategic approaches. So we asked the cities if they have a dedicated strategy for citizenship education. And in fact, 8 cities positively answered that question. We have 2 cities who may not have or do not have a dedicated strategy, but still citizenship education is a strategic priority included in other development strategies of the city. And we have 1 city of Gelsenkirchen, which has not yet defined this topic as a strategic priority, but is quite active in terms of actions and implementation. So what are the aims and purposes of engaging in citizenship education? The cities informed that they want to promote political awareness, involvement in political decision-making and electoral processes among their citizens. They want to promote gender equality. They want to raise awareness for the importance of lifelong learning. Another strategic priority is the involvement of youth in political decision-making, but not only youth, but also elderly learners, and importantly, to strengthen the ties between the generations. A very important issue is, of course, the inclusion of migrants and refugees, particularly also in terms of knowing about their rights and getting engaged, participating in political decisions, and to promote a culture of anti-racism and that is non-discriminatory. And within the current context, of course, very important is the promotion of resilience among local communities, which also helps to cope with crisis. In our second question, we were interested in what kind of partnerships are built and who are the stakeholders responsible for implementing citizenship education. So as you can see, almost all of the cities have a dedicated unit in the city government. And the interesting point, I think, about this question is that we can see quite different modes of governance for citizenship education. So we have some cities who show a very broad range of stakeholder involvement. They have chosen almost all of the predefined options here. So it is a very broad process, whereas we have other cities, as an example, Danyin and Shiraz, who have a more centralized approach, and the implementation of or the strategic direction of citizenship education is really guided by the city government. As mentioned, there is 1 city that does not yet have a dedicated unit in the government. This is Espoo. Espoo has a very strong decentralized and bottom-up approach. They involve all the other stakeholders that are listed here and get them together regularly to exchange on citizenship education and to promote its implementation. So we can see the governance modes for this topic are quite different in the cities. Who are the target groups? Who are the ones who shall benefit from citizenship education? Here we have given also 6 predefined answers. There was also an option to define others, but this was not used in the answers. And the first 3 strongest groups are also maybe the more general groups. So I think this is the reason why they were selected more often than the last 3 groups, which are more specific vulnerable groups. In the next slide, I will give some examples of what cities have been doing to address the needs of the target groups, and we can see very good examples of addressing particularly the needs of vulnerable groups. What I found interesting here is that for the Korean cities, we can see more that they address these general groups, children, youth, and adults. So their programming and implementation is targeting a broader population, whereas some of the other cities have more specific targeted approaches to reach the target groups. To give just some highlights, almost all of the cities who responded to the questionnaire have shared very interesting and valuable experiences, and we will also have the chance to hear from many of them during the next 2 days in the different sessions. So I have chosen here 3 cities, 2 of which will not present during the conference, so I thought it would be nice to include examples here. To address the needs of immigrant children and adults in Contagem, there is a project called Schools with No Borders, which is about teaching the Portuguese language to immigrant children in elementary school. But beyond children, they also target their parents. So the aim is to strengthen the links between the schools and the families and reach out to the parents also to enhance their language skills. In Espoo, as mentioned before, they have a very strong, very broad involvement of stakeholders, and youth councils are an important part of this. Espoo has established councils actually for youth, elderly and disabled persons, and they are actively involved in decision making. So while many of the youth representatives, due to their age, are not actually allowed to vote in formal elections, they still have a voice in political decision makings by being involved through these councils. An example from Shiraz is a children's rights clinic, which aims to provide legal advice to vulnerable and marginalized children and their families, and to provide also trainings on legal issues. This covers a broad range of topics, importantly including issues of domestic violence or child abuse, to provide a targeted support to these groups. In our 5th question, we asked the cities what are their main thematic interests, to assess also a little bit on where we want to go with the next year's work in the cluster. So the top 2 priorities chosen are climate change and environmental sustainability, as well as promoting diversity and intercultural understanding. They received the highest ranks. So climate change and environmental protection covers a range of subtopics, also including energy efficiency, recycling, or waste management. We can see examples, for example, from Contagem, which include sustainability issues in the school curriculums. Also, a very interesting example is provided by the city of Gwangmyeong, which also included the topic of environmental protection through arts projects. In terms of promoting diversity and cultural understanding, topics such as conflict resolution and mediation are important to counteract racism, and also to introduce children in particular, to different cultures in the world by bringing the music, culture, literature, but also food closer to them. And this has been established through the Windows at the World program in Heraklion as one example. Other strategic priorities that were mentioned are strengthening democratic values, enhancing critical skills for civic literacy. 7 cities decided that they were very interested in that, and ensuring human rights received slightly less attention, but is still among the top 5 priorities of cities. Our last question was referring to the current context to assess what cities have been doing to specifically promote citizenship education. During the past month, we could see a lot of different actions and examples of good practice from cities. They have also been shared through through a webinar series by the UNESCO GNLC. Here we have collected specific approaches to promote, to support communities in terms of citizenship education. And we can see that there are very important topics included here. For example, to reflect and support local citizens so they can build trust in their governments. This is quite a delicate issue in many countries now, with restrictions applying, also restricting individual freedoms. The questions of individual rights and responsibilities are quite permanent in such difficult times. Of course, also this crisis requires a change of behavior. It requires learning about new measures to prevent health and to get used to this state of the new normal. Within local communities, we've seen a lot of voluntary engagement. We've seen the strengthening of local communities, and cities have done a lot to also share empathy, to enhance solidarity among local communities, to build resilience through voluntary work, for example, but also to create a sense of awareness that we belong to a global community, that we are kind of all in this together, and also to see what can each and every one do in terms of promoting a sustainable and healthy lifestyle. And the last point I want to mention is that, of course, in such crises, also cases of domestic violence were on the rise, and cities have taken specific approaches to counteract this, as well as setting steps to construct a non-discriminatory culture, particularly also in these difficult times. So this is the end of this overview, which I guess also provides a good introduction to the topic, to see what the cities of the cluster have been doing. We will further work with this survey to plan our work with the Citizenship Education Cluster in the next year towards the 5th International Conference of Learning Cities. And we would like to, of course, invite all members of the Citizenship Education Cluster to participate in the survey. We will circulate the questionnaire once more, because it is very important to build a strong evidence base to make these examples of good practice also available to other cities, to showcase them in order to strengthen citizenship education at local level, which we will see now also during the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much, Mrs. Edith Hammer. You have mentioned the points of your survey. I think is very helpful for all the cities, and we help you help us to have a strong evidence base, and we will contribute. We promise that we will contribute even more, so that, because it was very helpful. What can I mention? The good practice and the information, all the information that we gained from your presentation was very, very helpful. Thank you very much. So Mr. Dimitris Deligiannis, now from the city of Larissa, chairman of Larissa City Council, Chancellor Profession of the Hellenic Open University, and I have to confess that I heard about the global network of Larissa City from Mr. Dimitris Deligiannis from the city of Larissa. Now I invite you, Dimitris, to contribute to the discussion. We can hear you. Dimitris, you can unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me? Do you hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes, we can hear you very well, and we're anxious to hear what you have to say to us.
Dear friends, participants of this online conference of Cluster, good morning from Greece. Just a moment from this PowerPoint. Θέλω να ανοίξει το τέτοιο συνολικά. Okay. It is the first time that the Greek city is coordinating just a moment because I have a problem with my PowerPoint.
We can see the PowerPoint, the presentation of Dimitris, but
I can't change the card.
the slides. The slides. Okay. Yes. Okay. In the meantime, if someone can help you, the help desk from this learning city of Larissa perhaps will help Dimitris with a presentation. If someone, just a few minutes before Dimitris is ready, someone wants to make a comment about what we have.
Yes, I think.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dimitris. We're live.
You can change the card from there. Okay. It is the first time that the Greek city is coordinating an international conference of UNESCO. And as our mayor said, we have this conference in the center of a new financial, social, and health crisis. We undertake the advantage to participate in an international dialogue about the human rights, about democracy, about the threats it faces, the support of vulnerable groups, the responsibility of citizens, the role of young people. In September 2015, from 193 countries, members of the United Nations, adopted a common plan, the Agenda of 2013. The aim is a better future for all of us. The Institute Lifelong Learning of UNESCO created the circumstances for the new start of global network of learning cities with more than 200 cities all over the world. A lot of people believe that the ideal frame of overcoming social problems is our cities. A lot of people believe that we have to face our biggest challenges for the human development, where we meet the local with the local practices and the global goals. Noam Chomsky, next card. Noam Chomsky has long warned that by imposing ruthless capitalism and globalization, the world has taken a path that threatens democratic normality. Power is transferred from public institutions to companies in which voters have no say. Similarly, the great German philosopher Habermas refers to the democratic deficit of modern Europe and the transformation of policies into an executive elite that is not prepared for a political way of shaping mindsets. Next. How then can one describe everyday life, the situation of the level of society and institutions? The states are in crisis, economy is in crisis, and the citizens are in danger. At the same time, recent researches on the reality of times of crisis refer to the domination of fear and anger, to the rhetoric of ever-growing hate against Roma people, against refugees, against immigrants. We saw this in recent years in many countries, in the United States, in Europe, in Greece with the rise of the neo-Nazi party, the Golden Dawn. The Greek challenge, next, is to mobilize civil society, the citizens, democratic dialogue at all levels, with answers to questions, as Freire says, such as what, why, how, for whom, against whom, by whom, for whose sake. Policies are formulating can be an important tool in contributing to a different reading of reality and the beginning of change with social consensus. We in Larissa, since 2017, Larissa Learning City, as a member of the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities, is promoting, we are promoting actions based on the humanitarian principles of lifelong learning. It is clear that when a city chooses to become a learning city, involves a process of change. Our main aim is to foster the dialogue between city stakeholders and citizens and creates partnerships, critical thinking, and active citizenship. It is clear, next, that the solutions are political. The future requires organized and responsive local communities and leaderships to educate active citizens in the years of crisis more than over. The road is long and goes through the motivation for action, participation, and decentralization, a deep philosophical concept. It refers to synergies and areas of responsibility rather than areas of power. Next, the problems, of course, are not lacking. Limited resources, lack of trained staff, suspicion and doubts are issues we are often called to face. What were visible from the first moment were years of problems in cooperating within the authorities, but also in the area of the municipal mechanism itself. In the period 2015-2019, dozens of workshops, 3 international conferences, educational programs, and innovative actions targeting specific social groups were organized. Thousands of citizens, our employees, children, parents, teachers, social workers, disabled people, members of vulnerable groups like Roma people, refugees, immigrants, addicted people, prisoners have taken part in these actions. Our point of view is the holistic approach. In October 2017, as you see in the card, a few days after the award of the city by UNESCO in Cork, Ireland, Mayor Apostolos Kalogiannis announced a new local institution, the Citizens University. Its purpose is to provide organized learning cycles for all the citizens of Larissa, giving priority to the vulnerable groups. The very use of the concept of citizen in the title of the institution underlines its political and social dimension. It is true that the nomination of our city as the coordinating city of the Network Learning Cities of UNESCO on citizenship education in September of 2019, created new priorities. The new institution refers to the progressive tradition of the humanitarian view of adult education. We think that in the context of an educational process, a key issue for every member of the local community is the creation of conditions for gaining a critical mood and free participation in rational dialogue in a period of crisis. Collaborations, the organization of well-structured educational programs and their connection with actions, and the promotion of the concept of active citizenship are the basic criteria for shaping learning cycles. You can see some of our programs. And I must mention that the first workshop held with Professor Ted Fleming, we can hear him after, was on the modern democracy in crisis, challenges and opportunities. I would also like specifically to mention the preparation of programs such as parent schools, language courses for refugees and immigrants, disability awareness program for municipal councillors and services, computer courses for the third age, our holistic intervention on, in the Roma population, the training of teachers for the use of art in education. The new reality we live in nowadays, because of COVID-19, has created new challenges. Our first step was to organize 4 online roundtables to discuss this new reality. During these roundtables, the consequences in fields such as public health, social outcomes, economy, and education were analyzed with great interest by the audience. And of course, our next steps include an educational cycle to support local teachers in the use of distance learning methods, online lessons for parents, online health programs, including prisoners. We were glad to hear a few days ago that this initiative won Good Award 2020 for good practices on outreach and access in adult education. And now, we must say something about the operation of innovative Municipal Youth Council, the educational programs for new students in Municipal Hall with the participation of 500 students in 1 year, and the announcements of the Municipal Authority for the program Open Schools were the new elements in strengthening citizenship education. During this conference, we will have the opportunity to hear good practices of each city from different parts of the world, with a different culture or political and social traditions, special scientists, famous scholars of lifelong learning from different universities in the world with different approaches. They all focus on different subjects. It is usual to hear carefully and learn from each other. We should try to find codes of communication, focusing on these matters which connect us. We speak about concepts known from old wise scholars such as Jacques Mézirow and Paulo Freire, the critical thinking, the transformation of stereotypes, the empowerment of citizens. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Mr. Dimitris Deligiannis, the chairman of Larissa City Council. And I think the man that introduced the global network of learning cities in the city of Larissa. Thank you, Mr. Dimitris Deligiannis. And now I will invite Mr. Nam-seok, the mayor of the city of the Yeonsu-gu, one of the coordinating cities of this online international conference. And we're very happy to see you live. We watched your recorded video and we are waiting for your words. Thank you very much. The floor is to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope all is well. I'm Nam-seok, Mayor of Yeonsu-gu. I'm very pleased today to share achievements, challenges, opportunities, and strategies in citizenship education of Yeonsu-gu with GNLC members. First of all, let me take you through briefly introducing Yeonsu-gu, followed by citizenship education projects. Here is a video to watch for introducing Yeonsu.
Learner beings always evolve. This is the case with Yeonsu, where Songdo International City is. Learner beings always evolve. This is the case with Yeonsu, where Songdo International City is. Yeonsu-gu, which started out as a lifelong learning city in 2003, was designated as a special education and globalization place and was selected as a member city of UNESCO GNLC in 2018. Yeonsu-gu, which has been serving as an international community to create a sustainable and comprehensive lifetime learning for everyone system that no one is left behind, was selected as a coordinator city to host a cluster of global civic education at the Fourth World Learning Cities. The evolution of GNLC Yeonsu, which opens the future thought sharing from now on, is beginning. Yeonsu, a long-standing historical city where Baekje envoys, who started diplomatic relations with China more than 1,600 years ago, stood as a key location in the Pacific periphery, where 15 international organizations, including 7 UN organizations and GCF, 10 prestigious global universities, and global companies were concentrated, with UNAPC-ICT, UNISDR, UNESCAP, and other UN-affiliate organizations. Experience the diverse cultures of the world at the Foreign Language Open Center and the International Language Experience Center, and become closer to the global neighbors. We'll promote a new tomorrow. Digital technology, which alienates vulnerable groups, is different in Yeonsu. Cafes, parks, residential areas, and subway idle spaces are transformed into learning spaces, realizing a place of lifelong education that meets within 10 minutes. Local recipients receive media training and utilize free equipment and facilities to make their own Yeonsu Village TV. Broadcasts such as Resident Village Broadcasting Team, Yeonsu Reporter, and Village Broadcasting Content. In particular, Yeonsu Story is a legacy for future generations and a channel for connecting generations. Smart Learning City will lead the fourth industrial revolution. Breaking down the barriers between learning creates a new standard for smart learning. The challenge is the mission of the time given to us. We are ready for the big world. Beyond Yeonsu, beyond the Republic of Korea, beyond the Asia Pacific, and into the world.
Yeonsu-gu, designated as a lifelong learning city in 2003, has continued to evolve to a learning city, with the ordinance enacted and the in-charge organization formed, and built the strategies to become a lifelong learning city with a vision of with the community, with the world. Local lifelong learning city, Yeonsu. Putting lifelong learning in place in a systematic way, there are a variety of education programs for all age groups in progress, including a core project between 10 domestic and foreign universities the International Language Education Center, public libraries, and the Youth Career Experience Center in Yeonsu-gu. Yeonsu became a member in GNLC in 2018. This year marks for another challenge for Yeonsu-gu. Recently, Yeonsu-gu submitted an application to host the 5th International Conference on Learning Cities. I would like to ask for your interest and support. Next, I will talk about how Yeonsu-gu has dealt with and operated global citizenship education amid the current worldwide crisis. We are under syndemic, faced with the issues of a lack of communication from social changes, on unequal education opportunities for the digital disadvantaged communities, as well as disaster-causing problems such as plastic waste and climate change. Setting up the development of diverse contents and platforms to foster citizenship, such as mutual understanding and caring, which will help overcome the crisis. First of all, Yeonsu planned a program which will enhance the community value of co-living and critical citizenship with a focus placed on the promotion of inclusion and partnership. For ways to make lifelong learning available, Yeonsu has established an online learning platform to sustain the community learning via Zoom or YouTube and small number classes. Also, try to improve the quality of frontline education by having in place the instructor education for adaptation to changing online learning environment. Citizenship education projects in Yeonsu-gu are run by the two main axes of adult learning in lifelong education and global citizenship education at school. Yeonsu-gu set up a project with the catchphrase of Global Citizen Lab Yeonsu. It is front and center, which aims to express the Yeonsu's identity as a transformational lab with flexible platform. In pushing citizenship education as a part of lifelong learning and pushing for detailed tasks with a goal set for establishing and proliferating citizenship education, which is in pursuit of the critical understanding of social issues and the active action taking. And here are our efforts to foster citizenship in action. Especially, Yeonsu-gu has programs in place which deliver its own vision for citizenship education beyond simply learning programs by developing instructors and planning for programs through a number of meetings with specialized civil organizations for citizenship education. Yeonsu-gu has the category tailored education in place to help the community better understand and the activists of global citizenship education improve their expertise. We shared the concept of citizenship education and domestic cases at Forum on Global Citizenship Education held in July. In order to promote citizenship education through cooperating in the field of lifelong learning, the city concluded the MOU with the Asia Pacific Center of Education for International Understanding. Under the auspices of UNESCO, the National Institute for Lifelong Education and the Extension College of National University are going to co-host a workshop. for citizenship education activists from all over the country this November. Next, let me introduce special citizenship education programs with a focus placed on the development of specialized program and the expandability of citizenship. First, Yeonsu-gu is running the Citizenship Education Outreach Project, which offers the values of all class in addition to the existing curriculum run by lifelong education institutes in Yeonsu-gu. Also developed the post-coronavirus age, read the world and practice local actions with global goals on intensive learning curriculum, which focuses on the fundamental values of citizenship education of Yeonsu's pursuit and community-focused practicing. This curriculum begins with the history of citizenry, followed by reviewing social issues, understanding social issues of inclusion and human rights, going through domestic practical cases and discussing social practicing and partnership. It aims at promoting the critical citizenship, which grasps mutual diversities and discerns surging hatred and discrimination from mass media outlets. The development of a follow-up curriculum will in progress, and totally committing to cultivating the global citizenship among communities through engaging diverse subjects and in various ways to push the project. Especially, the classes for disability advocates have thrived in progress since 2009, training citizens who have actively provided supports for the needs of the vulnerable groups and working on the curriculums in diverse forms, such as the world culture and language programs for the subjects of cultural diversities and inclusion of societies, and the exclusive online audio channel, Romance Hertz. Yeonsu-gu is aggressively pushing ahead with having community associations in place to realize the democracy driven by resident self-governing councils and elevate urban resilience. Lastly, a plan will be put into action to have learning clubs in place and foster activists to share and proliferate citizenship. Also, fully support learning resource activists to engage in more activities for practical promotion and distribute the report related to Global Citizen Lab Yeonsu project to enhance the awareness for citizenship education among domestic and international communities. Yeonsu-gu, since designated as Education Globalization Special Zone by the Ministry of Education in 2012, has pushed for global citizenship education with a vision set for cultivating talents capable of communicating and coexisting with global communities. Let me now introduce major school project. Yeonsu-gu selected 21 elementary, middle, and high school to develop an exemplary model for citizenship education in connection with school education curriculum and have programs in place. Especially, Mongol Desert Prevention Program, an international exchange project involving Mongol students, helps students strengthen their capabilities as a global citizen. Yeonsu Global EduUp project aims at helping students from elementary, middle, and high schools in jurisdiction with activities to reinforce their global capabilities. For the climate proposal competition with Green Climate Fund helps youth get interested in coping with climate changes. I hope that we have opportunities to find some time for contemplating and sharing opinions on the challenges related to the future direction of citizenship education. Amid social changes brought by coronavirus through this conference, in consideration of the aforementioned challenges, Yeonsu-gu will repeatedly call developing global citizenship education with lifelong education institutes and experts, introducing participation-centered learning methods to promote local actions and cultivating activity. Citizenship education is getting more important by the day. I wish this conference allowed us to discuss the way forward and future directions, promote the development of citizenship education, and have all cities learn, emphasize, and grow together. Thank you.
Thank you for your amazing video, and thank you for inspiring us, Mr. Nam-seok, the mayor of the city of Yeonsu-gu. Yes, we were inspired by your presentation. Thank you very much. And now I have to ask my Korean colleagues just to give the permit to Mr. Deligiannis to share his screen with us, to show us a video from the city of Larissa. Through a technical problem, it wasn't available before. So after the presentation from the city of Yeonsu-gu, we have the video from the city of Larissa. Is it okay, Dimitris Deligiannis, now? You can share. We're looking forward for the video from the city of Larissa. It's obvious that we have still a technical problem with that. Dimitris, are you there? Just a minute to wait if the problem will be solved in a minute, but waiting for Dimitris Deligiannis to share the video. I have to say that... Okay, Dimitris.
I think that we are okay.
We are live, so this is very common, but truly I have to admit that it was a very nice first day, and the contribution of all of them to the first day of the conference were amazing. Okay.
Πού είναι το βίντεο που το είχαμε δει και είπαμε να το έχετε πρώτο?
I'm speaking, I'm the moderator of this first session, and I'm very proud to be the moderator for the opening welcome. We hope, I do hope that, and we deeply believe that can you okay, do you have the video? Come on, Larissa.
Λίγο το έχετε εδώ μέσα, στο αυτό το κίτρινο που σας δείχνω. Ανοίξτε το λίγο, εκεί το έχετε. Ωραία, ανοίξτε αυτό.
This is common problems when you have a live conference.
A city that learns. Many other cities call themselves learning cities and actually put together their
We
programs.
can't see the video, but we can hear Dimitris. We don't know. I don't know if you can share your screen.
It is going to be a city that learns. That's what's going to be its defining characteristic. And it's really
Dimitris, we can only hear your video, but we can't see your video. Do you want me to conclude the conference? And if you can stop me if you're ready. But we have after the opening welcome, the first session.
We have a lot of problems, but you can go on.
Okay, we admit the Korean is years in front of us in the term of technology, but Greece we will go to them. So I wanted to share my feelings that we deeply believe and hope that the conclusion of this 2 days conference aiming and strengthening citizenship education that will fulfill your expectation. And I have to admit that it empowered me to empower my and our efforts in the city of Larissa for more achievement and more challenges and opportunities. And now we have the video of the city of Larissa. We are very glad to share with us.
Moments of learning city. The most important idea that this city has initiated is to put out the concept that it's going to be a city that learns. Many other cities call themselves learning cities and actually put together their programs and say that they are learning. But Larissa has done something different. It has decided that its very identity, that it is going to be a city that learns. That's what's going to be its defining characteristic. And it's really interesting. The city has decided that in order to be more democratic,
We can't hear the video, but we can share the pictures. And Ted Fleming, I think, is with us. Just to say, would you like the Professor Ted Fleming just to say a few words because we couldn't hear his voice through the video? Is Ted Fleming with us?
Good morning.
Thank you, Ted Fleming. You are always saving the city of Larissa. Thank you very much.
Hello, Olga. Thank you for your welcome. I just want to say a few words. I see you're trying to launch a video, Dimitris. In the video, I was making a very simple point, and that was that Larissa is not only a city that learns, but it wants to say that what defines it and how it wants to create an identity is that at the very center of what it is, it wants to be a learning city. So it's going to define itself as a city that learns. This actually locates the city in quite a unique tradition. The tradition being that those who want to bring about a democracy, and Dimitris was quoting Jürgen Habermas earlier this morning, and what he says is that democracy is something that needs to be learned every day, all your life. And not only that, but democracy itself is a form of learning. Dewey talked about education. Any kind of education is a form of living together. He called it a form of conjoined living. So this city has decided that it's going to be a learning city because only by learning will it become a democracy. And one of the special groups that I see, Georgie Kolazides texting around this morning too from Thessaloniki, which is nice, identifying an interest in young people. Tomorrow I'll say something about that issue. But I know I'm just here for 1 minute to give Olga an opportunity to decide what comes next. So I'm delighted to be involved. Good to see all my friends. I miss everybody. And it's nice to speak to our new colleagues in South Korea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ted, for your contribution. Not for this moment, Father, for your major contribution to the city of Larissa and the learning cities. We deeply hope that the conclusion of these 2 days will contribute to democracy, as Ted Fleming said before. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the contribution and your attention. Thank you very much, the director of UIL, David Atsuarera. Yes, David Atsuarena. And thank you, the mayors of the 2 cities that coordinate cities, the city of Larissa, Mr. Apostolos Kalogiannis, and thank you, the mayor of city of Yeonsu-gu, Nam-seok, and all the participants. The conference continues with the program starts at 11:30 CET after a break. And I'm Olga Tsiourva, Regional Director of the Greek Public Employment Service, located in Larissa. Please stay safe, do your best to protect yourself and your beloved and your cities, the learning cities. Thank you, UNESCO. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll be back at 11:30 with very interesting presentations for the first session. We'll see you 11:30.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Olga Tsiourva. This concludes the opening session, and the session will commence at 11:30. See you on session 1. And as soon as we got the mail from Larissa, we are gonna to stream their video. See you then.